Welcome to Employee Termination Tips. My name is Christopher Neufeld of Neufeld Legal, and in this video we're going to discuss what controls employment standards legislation or telephone conversations with employment standards officer. And to give you the short answer, employment standards legislation, otherwise being an Employment Standards Code or Employment Standards Act that is promulgated by the jurisdiction's legislature. Controls, because it is the controlling document. It is the precise, specific language that dictates employment relationships and the law pertaining to the employer-employee relationship. Now, what an employment standards officer does on the phone is they attempt to relay information based on what they are provided with to yourself. Now, there are limitations because they don't have all the facts in front of you. They are not allowed to provide an interpretation of the law. And the materials that they have are generalized attempts to convey a generalist, non-controversial interpretation of what is stated in the Employment Standards Code and the laws from the courts surrounding that, such that it can be inaccurate. And it's not that it's necessarily always inaccurate, it's that based on the facts and based on your failure to specify all the facts and based on their limitations in analyzing all the relevant facts, because more often than not, you're not going to be able to communicate everything. They're not going to be able to grasp everything. Their interpretation and their communication is going to be limited and could potentially stray from what exactly is provided for in the employment standards legislation and how a lawyer who is specifically focused on your factual situation probes you, has a responsibility to you, and analyzes specific to yourself and takes into account other aspects and other laws that are pertinent, will provide you with a more thorough analysis, more complete analysis, and closer to what you need to be knowing. Hence, my obvious concern at all times with simply relying upon a telephone conversation with an employment standards officer. Because even though they might attempt to do their best, there are so many constraints that are imposed upon them that they are not in a position to accurately provide you with the absolute certainty, the answer that is correct. So you always have to take what they say with a grain of salt, recognizing the inherent limitations of simply calling somebody out of the blue. Even though they are hardworking, they attempt to answer correctly based on the limitations that they are provided with, based on the fact that they are in fact largely not able to provide legal advice, interpretation, analysis, and the like. So at the end of the day, even though they might communicate something to yourself, the employment standards legislation does control, and because it controls, it may well, once properly applied to all the facts and circumstances and other case law, may result in something different from what this first-time employment standards officer communicates to yourself as the response that they have based on their limited abilities. So that's a challenge you face, and that is the importance of getting legal counsel that specifically looks at your facts and circumstances, analyzes in totality, takes the time, steps back, reassesses, questions their own interpretations, and then provides you the guidance. And that is why you go to a lawyer. And that is why you cannot limit yourself to a telephone conversation with an employment standards officer, especially when it pertains to something as important as your termination and severance. Thank you.